Welcome, everyone.
I'm Dana Harsel,
And I'm Lori Betting.
and we are the co-chairs of the strategic planning process.
We want to take a minute to thank the students, the staff, faculty, and administrators who made up the 49-member planning committee for their hard work and contributions to the strategic planning process.
We also want to thank all the members of the campus who have at various times given us very important input into this process. We also want to thank very much all the people here today who have helped set up and plan this event.
We are excited, I think you can tell, for the official launch of the plan. So without any further remarks, please welcome President Kennedy.
We're here today to shed light on the road we've traveled and the road we have yet to travel. We've had a very difficult and challenging legislative session that we've just completed, and that has resulted in a lot of painful cuts for all of us. But I think we need to really just put a stop on focusing on the past and really look to tomorrow. Because I believe that there is a bright tomorrow in store for the University of North Dakota if we focus on the future that the strategic plan sets out. The Strategic Planning Committee, 45 members that got together over the last 8-10 months to bring this plan to fruition. Let's have the 45 members that are here please stand so we can recognize them. And in total, we had over 800 people engaged in the process. The largest group was faculty, but staff and community members and administration and dean were all brought into the process. We started out by saying, what are we here for? What are we here for as the University of North Dakota? And ultimately, we're here for students and for our state. And we said, what is our purpose? What are we trying to do? We want to be the chief opportunity engine for North Dakota and for those students by delivering them opportunity in the form of learning, discovery, and engagement. We think we best do that by fulfilling our vision to be the premier flagship in the Northern Plains. Flagships as in the university ofs within a state, just like we are. And we started next to focus on what are the core values that we hold as the University of North Dakota, had a wide degree of engagement about that, and in the end came up with these 6 core values. And really from there, we took those core values and said, if these are our core values, what then should we focus on for our strategic goals? They came out of the core values. But first we did a SWOT analysis. What are our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And just focusing for a second on the threats. The threats begin with the fact that there is free online content from elite universities delivered with digitally enabled experiences that we are competing against. If you want to get Harvard on your resume, just go to edX. You can take a MOOC, a massively online open course. You pay a few $100s, you can perhaps get a certificate that you took that course. If you prefer to get your thing from resume, your resume item from Stanford, or even better yet, maybe Michigan, you can go to Coursera. If you want to learn more about art history, maybe Khan Academy can give that to you. So the main threat is that affordable Ivy League content is available in Paris or Grand Forks or Williston or any other place around the world. And content has become ubiquitous everywhere, low cost or free. The second threat is that the primacy of traditional degrees is under threat. If you look at udacity.com over in the left-hand corner, if you want to work for Facebook, click that and it'll tell you, here's the handful of nano degrees that Facebook wants you to take. Or you can go to Google or IBM or Lockheed Martin. My son took one of these courses for $450 on deep computing. As part of that, he had access to a supercomputer for 5 projects that he designed and ran as part of it. So they're highly experiential, very well polished. And if you go, as you see in the circled area here, and get a Nano Degree Plus program, they guarantee if you don't get a job within 6 months, that you get all your tuition back. You find yourself 5 years down the road that your skills need retooling, just go back, click on the nano degrees you need to be current, and go back and do it. So these nano degrees are in many ways beginning to undermine the demand for for the traditional degrees. The next thing is that competition for traditional degrees is also increasing and accelerating. Georgia Tech is offering a $7,000 master's in computer science, very affordable degree from a very reputable institution. But if you look at Arizona State, they now serve 24,000 students online. That's double what they had 2 years ago. So they basically added a University of North Dakota in the last couple of years, and their stated goal is to be 100,000. Now, in a relatively flattish market for credit hours across the country, who's that coming from? You look at Purdue, just recently bought Kaplan University, an online provider with 32,000 students and 15 campuses. What's to prevent Purdue from opening up a campus in Fargo or in Bismarck or in Grand Forks and start offering courses with some face-to-face elements? I can tell you when I was at George Washington University, New York University came and established a presence basically right across the street from George Washington University. It is becoming a very competitive marketplace. And as they're saying, this act by Purdue is really legitimizing in many ways the online degrees. A book I read recently, The Second Machine Age, said digital technologies have aided the transition to winner take all. They're saying, why would you take a course from a star when you could instead take it from a superstar? And when you're looking at music or movies or online courses, why settle for the second best? And if you look at these providers online, if they have 500 students in Accounting 101, they have one professor for those 500 students. And each block of 15 to 25 has an instructional aide helping the students through the course, but they're not putting their second best professor of Accounting 101 in another course side by side. They're going with the best. And that's what we're going to be up against. So being second best for a course or a degree is of diminishing value in this increasingly competitive age. The second thing is that reduced state funding and the focus on student debt is putting a greater and greater pressure on us, like everybody else in the economy, to do more for less. It was interesting to me that when I woke up after we just went through this 20% cut in state funding, that the key concern from our good friends at the Grand Forks Herald was that we needed to have a greater focus on student debt, with Tom Dennis saying that that would answer one of the root concerns amongst taxpayers, which is that higher education has become selfish. So this is our hometown paper, much less a paper from a town that doesn't have a major university based in it. And it's because of this pressure that as I was going to Reno to watch our men's basketball team and women's basketball team compete in the tournaments, as I went through the security, the tray has University of Nevada bragging that our faculty is 32% more productive than other Tier 1 universities. University of Reno knows that being more productive than your competitive universities is something they need to do. If you go to Reno or if you go to Las Vegas, there's a difference between table stakes and opportunity to win. You have to have a certain number of chips that you put on the table, certain number of chips to get a seat at the table, and only after that can you bet to win. So if you look at quality content, which we have great quality content, we have fabulous professors here teaching good courses. Name brand, which we have, more for less, which we need to continue to focus on, those are just table stakes. And if you look at Clay Christensen, he said that 15 years from now, half the universities existing in America today are not going to exist. Now, we might say that's just all fanciful, but if you go to this website on New England colleges, when I went through the list of colleges that had closed, the list aggregated more than 90. And if you look at CBS Pittsburgh reporting here, Pennsylvania considering whether they have to close colleges, they listed 5 of them here. Indiana University of Pennsylvania is a funny-sounding name for a university, but they are older, and as of 2010, were bigger than the University of North Dakota, and there's talk on reputable news outlets like CBS about they may need to close. Now, they perhaps didn't close this year, but that's this year. What about 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 6 years from now, as this digital competition becomes ever more significant? They say that 63% of the universities missed their enrollment targets last year. 84% are concerned with meeting their target for this year. You could say that University of North Dakota is in that bucket. Because if you look at from 2012, we've been on a downward trajectory of credit hours delivered. Now, if you think of the budget cuts we went through today, we've got 8,000 less credit hours today than we did in 2012. And if we had 8,000 more credit hours being delivered today, we'd have more students in our classroom, more opportunities for teachers, all of those good things. We've been suffering from this missing targets. The big challenge we need to think of, if you think of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, where he said a tipping point is that magical moment when an idea, a trend, a social behavior crosses the threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. Everybody says it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen, and boom. Everybody says, we should have thought it coming. Interestingly, Mike Jacobs, a good friend of UND, a graduate of UND, a good friend of liberal arts, a good friend of higher education, reporting what he's hearing in Bismarck, saying that quite a few of the Main Street eminences who believe that government is okay as long as it's working doubt that North Dakota's higher education system passes this bar, that campuses are no longer necessary because knowledge is pervasive. You perhaps read the governor's review yesterday in his interview with the Grand Forks Herald. This chatter is increasing in intensity and frequency. At what point does it become just the tipping point and everybody accepts it? Is that 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, 8 years from now? Those are the concerns that we need to have. And I think it's important that we wake up and smell the coffee and recognize that if that tipping point comes, if all of a sudden parents don't believe that having their kids spend 4 years at the University of North Dakota or any other university and spending 4 years of tuition here is going to create a good lifetime for them, unlike the Great Flood, you're not going to be able to rebuild from that. And so if you're saying, Mark, this is really, you're being too negative, I don't think it's really that bad, if you're wrong, we aren't going to have a recovery moment. So I think we need to always ask ourselves when we're pressing and asking questions, is that a 55-foot question or is that a 49-foot question? And frankly, in some of the pushback I get, I'm thinking it's 10 or 15 or 5-foot question because it's not recognizing the pressure that the university is under. So we have the table stakes, we have to go on to win. Let's move out of the threats and talk about the opportunities, of which I think there are many. Given this landscape, what can we do? What opportunities can we capture? First of all, when you think about cultivating critical thinking, analytical reasoning, problem solving, written communication skills, that's harder to do online. And there are things we can do in a very tangible way in the classrooms and around the classrooms that just can't be replicated in an electronic environment. Secondly, we grant affordable degrees. One of the reasons I'm here is that I saw this landscape coming. University of North Dakota is about 1/8 what it costs to go to George Washington University. When we're in this competitive price point environment, we're at a price point where we got a much greater chance of winning and being on the winning side. We also have some degrees that we're already offering online, or we could be expanding online, whether it's forensic psychology or space science, that could perhaps be expanded. Next, the state of North Dakota is always going to need some research university to help them diversify their economy. And interestingly, even though content is becoming everywhere, what we're still needing is innovation, research, new ideas coming up. This is from a vendor that helps people with space planning, so the bars are space they've been adding, but the line is their enrollment. And you can see that master's-only comprehensive institutions like a Mankato State or a St. Cloud State that don't offer PhDs have flattened out in recent years. You can see that smaller institutions are facing very, very challenging times. And if you've been hearing Buzz talking about people from a number of these institutions, this reflects the challenges that they're facing. But research institutions have continued to grow overall. That's the space we want to be in. We want to be providing those new ideas, innovations at the cutting edge in everything we teach, and that's the path to success. Engagement. We talk a lot about being welcoming, and we want to be welcoming, but one of the things we can do that you just can't do online is take a kid from small town North Dakota or Minnesota and help them that has never seen or regularly dealt with people that aren't either Norwegian or Swedish descent, and help them deal with us Irish people every now and then, or other, folks from an increasingly diverse world. When they go out into the world, they're going to need to know how to engage with diversity. You can't teach that online. You could only teach that in an atmosphere like we have here on campus, and we need to view that as one of the great things that we provide to our students. We need to build on our strong partnership with the military, and as I've said many times, that I just came from the Alumni Association and Foundation meeting, our alumni love us, and we can leverage that strength. Those are the 7 things that I see as opportunities, but how do we lasso? How do we capture those opportunities? First, and our first goal is to provide a strong liberal arts foundation. In each case, we're coming up with a metric. How do we measure this? And who do we compare ourselves against? If we're going to be the premier flagship of the Northern Plains, we want to compare ourselves to the premier flagships that we're competing against: Idaho, Montana, South Dakota, and Wyoming. And so our goal here is we're going to start retaking the course of College Learning Assessment CLA+, which is designed to test these skills and set a goal for ourselves that we're going to be better than those other flagships in the region. In each case, we also have a captain, and that captain will ultimately build a team. And the captain for this is none other than Debbie Storrs, recently promoted to Senior Vice President, but continues to be Deans of Arts and Sciences. And amongst the action steps that we're going to be having under each of these goals includes having 2 experiential opportunities in every degree. Again, you can't deliver these experiential opportunities online. This differentiates ourselves. And so we're looking at writing intensive courses, undergraduate research, study abroad or diversity experiences, service learning or internships, as we want to make sure that we're providing more and more of that. And if you look at nearly everything we offer, we're typically sending our graduates out of here with not just the theory that from book learning, but having actually hands-on done it. And we need to make that a hallmark of a UND education. We're also going to be adding a first-year experience course, something we've talked about for a long time but haven't done. And we're going to have our freshmen pick one experiential learning right when they come in. Because part of what we want to do to achieve our second goal, higher graduation rate, you need to keep them here. And part of the best way of keeping them here is getting their connective tissues throughout the university, and one of the best ways of doing that is having them engage in some kind of experiential learning. We're going to also be promoting cross-discipline degrees. So our business graduates also have a good head for figures. If you look at it, this goes both ways. Originals, another book that I'm reading by Adam Grant, talks about how the Nobel Prize laureates are distinguished. They're not just great scientists, but they also have artistic hobbies. And he's going through a variety of, if you have sort of left brain, right brain activities going on at the same time, you're going to be more holistically innovative. But on the flip side, Wall Street Journal recently had an article, Liberal Arts College in a Fight for Survival, Focus on Job Skills, and some are requiring humanities students to take math or statistics course. So if we bolt on more of a focus on analytics onto our humanities degrees, they're going to be more employable. So it's really crossing both ways. We're really, in many ways, moving into a world of and. It's not liberal arts or more occupational, it's and that we need to be preparing our students for as we go forward. We've had a strong tradition of promoting active learning. We need to continue to promote that active learning. And we also need to take the attitude that we are the same quality online as we are face-to-face. Now, another person I talked to that had taken one of our online courses had said that they paid twice as much as my son did for Udacity.com. And when I asked how they liked it, they said, I really didn't need to listen to the lectures because they were straight out of the book. That's not the kind of experiential learning that we would be satisfied in a classroom. We should not be satisfied with it online. So I think there's opportunities to expand online, but we need to take a very critical eye towards every presentation of education coming out of the University of North Dakota and hold it to the same high standards. Second goal, increase graduation rates. If you look on average from the APLU, somebody graduating from a place like University of North Dakota has about $25,000 in debt, about the price of a low-price Chevy loan, but they get $1 million more over a lifetime. So we're giving them a 40-to-1 payback. So when you look at affordability, and you look at the fact that during the peak of the recession, the unemployment rate amongst college grad was half that of other people, and if you look at the fact that 99% of the jobs created since the last recession require at least some college, the best way we can answer Tom Dennis's concern about affordability is to make sure they graduate. Because if they graduate, they're going to get a great return on their degree. If they don't, less so. So we are looking to increase our 4-year graduation rate from 28% to 34% over this 5-year period, and that has to be a key focus for all of us, particularly if we're going to deliver that opportunity to our students. So understand that 6-year graduation rates and retention are also something we're going to look at it. The way I look at it is a 4-year graduation is putting the basketball through the hoop, a 6 years hitting the rim, the retention rate is jumping up, what you need to do to get it in the hoop. But if we're shooting for the 4-year graduation rate, we're going to have and achieve retention rates and better 6-year graduation rates as we go along. The captain in this case is going to be Hisham El-Rouini, and examples of action steps are starfish adaptation tied to faculty contracts, which is shown to be a great way to make sure that we're not just giving them good information in the classroom, but we're getting them to graduation, that we're going to be using predictive analytics to target interventions at just the right time with just the right intervention for our students to get them across the line and tie that to the review of the advisees. We're looking for outbound calling schedule. For example, if they haven't signed up for spring yet, but they were here in the fall, put a group of people on phones and call them and say, can I help you? Well, you know, is there a challenge? What's the stumbling block I can help you through? Degree Planner is a software that we're going to try to implement here in the relatively near future. I can tell you all 4 of my kids got through college in 4 years. Part of it was because I negotiated with them before they were born, which I advise you is the best time to negotiate with your children. And I said to them, no dating before you're 16, and Dad pays for 3/4 of the first 4 years of any school you can get into. 50 years on you. But the other thing is, all 4 of my kids, at every stage in their college career, we had a full 4-year plan of what classes they would take. They decided they really didn't want to take that one. They were sliding in a different one. We'd look at the plan and make sure that it was in place. So that Degree Planner is a software that would allow students to do that, but also have the advisees have access to that all along the way. We also need to focus on DFWs, Ds, Fs, and withdraws that have shown to be a big stumbling block to get them to the finish line. Where are they coming from? How can we stop them? How can we intervene? And we need to look at other roadblocks to success along the way to get them to graduation, and have a bigger focus on 15 to finish and other comparable things at the graduate programs. So here we have Hisham giving you his insight.
Helping students succeed is at the heart of everything we do here at the University of North Dakota. Our goal is to enrich the student experience inside and outside the classroom. Our faculty and staff work hard to ensure that all students have a clear path toward graduation. Through academic tools, personal interactions, and financial advising, we are committed to helping our students find success at UND and beyond.
Thank you, Hisham. Moving on to our third goal, deliver more educational opportunities online and on campus, which I think we can do. We're going to be doing this by increasing credit hours by 10% is our goal over the 10-year period. But remember what I just told you, that we've been on a downward trend. And even though we hope that when it comes to fall enrollment that we're up, that added into a pool that's going to go down means we're going to continue to be down this year. It's going to be a Herculean effort to flatten it out in the next year and start it going up in the third year. We haven't laid out what the exact numbers are, but just recognize that's coming. But it's first arresting the decline, flattening it out, and moving it up, which is the goal we're trying to move on to. We're going to be having the new VP of Marketing and Communications that will be moving into the position that Peter Johnson now sits in when he retires. We don't have that person. And in the meantime, I'm going to continue the weekly marketing meetings that I've been having. And the other place where I see this opportunity come from is online. So I'm going to start having regular meetings to talk about which online degrees can we really expand. If you look at part of what we're doing on marketing, We're going through a branding exercise, which isn't going to roll out till later on this summer. I think you're going to like it when it comes out. But University of Louisville, Louisville, as they say down there, recently consolidated their brand, and they had a 38% increase in donor giving, 8% increase in overall revenue, 22% increase in out-of-state enrollment. And with all the challenges we've gone through over the brand of University of North Dakota, I think there's an even bigger bump for us. When you look at our website, right now, on an iPhone, it looks exactly the same as it does on a PC. Most universities are already into mobile-friendly websites, or what they call platform aware. It knows whether it's speaking to an iPad, an iPhone, or a PC. And if you look at the significant increases that have resulted from those universities that have switched from where we are to a more responsive platform, I'm particularly interested in 21% of the students accepting offers go up. Because if you get an offer from UND and you get that on an iPhone that looks like a PC, you're saying, I consider myself a hip with it on the front edge of technology. Clearly, they're not, so why would I go there? There's little things like that that we're communicating that I think this can really help us to do. We're in the process of that. It may not roll out until at the end of next spring, but I think when that does, it's going to have an impact. We're already started landing pages that are mobile friendly, that do bring on key selling points, that are integrated with our customer relationship management program for a number of our programs, and we're finding significant benefit from that. We've started our digital advertising. Most of what we're going to be doing in advertising, you're not going to be seeing in paper because we're moving from a paper to a digital world. But in all of these advertisements, you get a high degree of analytics of how many of those people saw it, of those people who saw it, how many went and applied, how many went and ultimately enrolled, and you're going to be critically evaluating all of the marketing that you're doing. And so Sarah and our marketing team have been doing a great job of moving us forward on this. We need to upgrade our recruiting software to make sure that all the different people talking to students, professors, admissions people, et cetera, are connected into the same conversation. And we're going to be conducting a review and interviewing some outside parties about can they come in like they have in Arizona State and other universities and bring a more significant presence online. They charge a slice of the revenue, but typically that's reflective of the services that they're delivering, and there's an opportunity there. We're hoping to add more programming in cyber and analytics, both of which I think are going to be high growth programs and high opportunities for existing students and hopefully attracting new students. We need to do a better job, as we've begun to do, with transfer students. Sometimes it's a very cumbersome process for a student to transfer into the University of North Dakota. We're going to be having our admissions be more analytic driven in terms of where they're directing their time. And we need to continue to look at refining our scholarships to make sure that they're doing the best job they can of attracting people here. And I'm going to talk about two other areas that I believe are important to attracting students to the University of North Dakota. I do believe that athletics continue to be a front porch of university, that bring people to our campus, get them to see all the great things we have inside. And I'm always looking when I'm at these games how many 14-year-olds and 17-year-olds are out there in the stands that are beginning to love University of North Dakota. When you have 1.4 million viewers watching our boys get more points against Arizona than anybody else besides UCLA, that's a good thing for the University of North Dakota. We've done 4 steps towards getting athletics right on the path we want. We have 4 more steps to go. The first is the name and logo transition. We need to have, as I was explaining to some person giving me a 20-minute lecture on our past logo at our Champions Ball last weekend, I said, it's my job as President of the United States to have this President of something even greater than the United States, University of North Dakota. We'll get into this. My next lecture will be on what the President of the United States should be doing. It's my job as President of University of North Dakota to have this generation of students be as passionate about the Hawks as you are about the logo you had here. There's no way we're going to engender that kind of alumni connection to the university unless we get that done, and unless we do that. And so interestingly, he went to his table and gave the same lecture to the people at the table, came up to me a little bit sheepish afterwards and said, I was telling that to my table, and the 3 athletes sitting at the table said to me, we're Hawks. So it's beginning to happen. You know, when we say, there's a big payback from getting students to love the Hawks. We've been talking about getting into the right conference for forever. Being at home with our natural rivals. That's done, and we're on the path to doing that. We've had the right size to D1. Very, very painful process. I heard a lot when I came here, when we moved to D2 to D1, we can't really afford D1 and the expense that it requires for the space of sports we're offering. That was painful for me, painful for others, but I think sets up in a better position for athletics overall. We've demonstrated D1 competitiveness. I haven't heard of another university that has won 4 conference championships in the same year, right after winning a hockey national championship. I'm learning more about the Grand Forks community because everybody's still down at the Dopper because we didn't get into the Final Four for the Frozen Four. But we need to recognize that we have a lot of great teams and we are competitive at Division I. But what do we need to do? We're going to need to make sure we rebalance given the adjustments we've made. We're going to need to make sure we fundraise. That the High Performance Center has been great and added wonderful, Bubba was talking about 30 new records in track and field since we've added this. But we need to get the second piece done because right now, if you've been through our men's football locker, Pequot Lakes High School has better lockers than we do at the University of North Dakota, and we need to correct that. We need to have a university-wide apparel deal. For us to take the next step in getting people to love the Hawks, they want to be wearing what they see the athletes and what they see the coaches wearing, and that can only be done with the university-wide apparel deal, which is another complicated negotiation we're going to have to go through in the months ahead. And we need to make our football game day experience comparable to or better the Fargo Dome experience. So we'll be announcing a committee that will address that here in the relatively near future. Campus. I do believe that we not only have the best and prettiest campus in North Dakota, agreeing with Travel and Leisure, but beyond that. I think the bones of our campus are amongst the most beautiful campus I've ever seen. But the bones are getting a little tired. And the average building is 50 years old, and we're nearly $500 million in deferred maintenance, which 4 medical school equivalents of deferred maintenance. So even though we're making a bigger push online, and even though some folks don't think that a campus makes a difference anymore, I just want to show you that Penn State World Campus is their website for their online programs. And what are they showing on their online website? They're showing bricks and mortar. It's bricks and mortar that develops the brand that you sell online, that you bring students here and face-to-face. We need to get our online looking sharp. That's going to require an all-of-the-above approach. Luckily, we have a lot of brand new buildings. Robin Hall, mostly funded by private donations. Medical school, a gift from the legislature and the governor. The Collaborative Energy Center, a big beneficiary of the matching program, but a lot of private donations. We've remodeled some classrooms and need to continue and finish that effort. The second floor of the library, the old med school, to move some of our people in there out of other buildings. We've had 2 properties that we've listed for sale. We've taken a number else offline. We have 8 set to remove this summer, and we have some more apartments that we've on plan to remove the year after that. We're exploring the contracting for steam. I'm saying we're not in the steam business. We can't afford to take capital dollars to redo our steam plant. Let's buy it from somewhere else and get it off the quad so we can look all around the quad and see beautiful sights. But we've also focusing on this Cooley to Columbia committee that is moving forward and thinking about how do we make our Main Street nicer. We're not adding capacity. We've done a capital plan that says we have enough capacity, but we need to upgrade it so we can facilitate the kind of interactive teaching that creates those experiences, so that we can have those informal breakout groups that students these days are demanding. A couple of big projects along that way are the Chester Fritz Library. A $21 million phase of the first half of it is legislatively approved to be all privately funded. We need less physical books and more technology in study spaces. Gamble Hall, $70 million remodel, replace, again, legislatively approved, but all private funds. So you're going to be seeing me on the road a lot more in the next couple of years, trying to knock on doors and see if we can't open up a few pocketbooks to get this done. The students will consider this fall whether they want to remodel the Memorial Union. But we're also on schedule, according to Todd Phelan, a member of our community, for the state to come in here and redo, state and city, to redo University Avenue. So if we get our act together by 2020 and that comes on, there's amazing upgrade that we could be having along University Avenue. And I think having that center of our campus looking nicer is going to magnify everything else we do. We decided that we have enough space for the facilities, but the north side of University Avenue, we could perhaps have several blocks that is more of a commercial section that we could open up to, whether it be small grocery store or restaurants or people selling Hawk jerseys. The next steps in campus are completing the master plan, and we're in the middle of doing that between now and next February, March. We've never had a capital plan for dealing with the stuff that neither the legislature or donors are going to pay for. They're not going to pay for cracked sidewalks. They're not going to pay for a roof you need to repair. So we need to start creating a capital plan. So we're going to be adding 1%, as it was talked about in the legislature, on top of whatever the tuition increase is going to be. But that 1% is going to be devoted exclusively to capital. And we're going to try to see if through fundraising we can't leverage that and use that as matching in some instances to start chipping away at that $500 million of deferred maintenance that we're facing. But we're still conscious about the cost for our students. Our embrace of open educational resources has been not only the best in North Dakota, but I think one of the best in the country. Led by our student senate and Brandon and team getting that started, but the provost and others pitching in. And we think that we've saved well over $1 million for our students this year in terms of lower costs for textbooks. But from what we've unleashed, we think it could be $4 million next year. So that could almost completely offset whatever the tuition rate is going to be for our undergrad students. So we're still focused on that cost side to them. But besides the big projects like the library, the business school, and a high-performance center 2, I'm looking to have the committee give a listing of relatively small cost but kind of big impact on the way the campus looks, beautification projects. Why don't we have markers to the campus entrance? And the committee presented to us a whole other stream of things that could be done. So I'm going to be asking the committee to give a menu of things that as I'm going around with Deanna and the team from the foundation to say, is this something you'd be interested in supporting? Next, onto the Discovery Channel, or goal. We watch the Discovery Channel too, right? Other high content that's ubiquitous. We need to enhance our discovery to the level consistent with the most research-intensive universities. There are only about 350 research institutions in this country, according to Carnegie, out of the 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 universities out there. We're in that R2 level. Our goal ultimately is to get up into the R1. My belief is that the second richest oil state in the country, we should have one of the 115 most research-intensive universities. And that's going to help diversify the economy away from the cyclical commodity ups and downs that we've had. I don't know if it's 120 that we're shooting for. We're going to finalize that amounts when we get the team captains done. Grant Majimsi is going to be heading this effort. But I want to emphasize that the internally funded research is going to be a part of this, because most universities capitalize and report their internally funded research. Your page 2 is that you're spending on research and report that. We're doing that. So when we give a dollar goal, don't think it's just the dollars you raised, although we want more of that, because that brings in great opportunities to fund more faculty. But we're also going to include all of the published journal articles, conference proceedings, books, book chapters, all those things on your page 2 and capitalizing them as part of this goal. We've named 5 captains for the 5 grand challenges that we're going to be focusing our research on. We'll be doing other research in this, but the university focus will be on these areas where we think we're particularly good and that there's a need out there in society. To promote energy security and sustainability, and Tom Erickson will be working with our folks in engineering and elsewhere to advance that. We also have been very strong in biomedical, and Colin Combs from the medical school will be leading the continued focus on that. We have Thomasine Heitkamp with us here today, focus on helping rural communities solve their unique health and social problems. Hisham El-Rawini is going to be taking the lead initially on how do we help the world through this big data where just as digitization is sweeping over education, it's sweeping over everything else. How do we adjust our lives and our economies and everything else in our in what we do to this age of big data? And then we are also going to be continuing to focus on how do we drive the world-changing developments of unmanned and do so in a way that reflects our values. Ultimately, we're recruiting for a new Institute of Unmanned and Autonomous Research. In the meantime, Mark Askelson from our Odegaard School is going to be leading this effort. One thing, though, I want to point out, you don't do research without PhDs. And so we need to have a more intentional focus on PhDs, on those PhD programs that both align with the grand challenges and are of critical mass. And really, we need to be thinking about our master's degrees as being responsive to demand. If you look at us, I know we never compare ourselves to the university down south. We're ahead on master's degrees. That's the good news. The bad news is that a lot of these master's degrees are a relatively small number of students in a program, many of which are funded through tuition aid. So we're really not having a lot of students responding to demand. The flip side of that is we're behind NDSU in PhDs. Yes, we have a lot of medical doctors we graduate. Yes, we have a lot of law grads we graduate. But when it comes to PhDs, what really drives research, we're behind. As a flagship, we should not be behind NDSU in PhDs. And if we're going to drive what we want to do in research, we need to have them. We don't have big pockets of money to go and fund PhD programs that can be expensive. So what this means, we're going to need to be redeploying those tuition awards for masters that are really not facing a lot of market demand towards driving the PhD programs. Again, I'll remind you, this is partly because we want to stay on this middle line. We don't want to be like a comprehensive university that's masters only. Their future is much less bright than if you've got strong PhD programs driving strong research programs that are driving our students in the classroom getting great, up-to-date, cutting-edge information. So let's hear from Grant.
From unmanned aircraft systems testing to vaccine development, research continues to thrive at the University of North Dakota. Our research conducted in the areas such as health sciences, nutrition, energy and environmental protection, aerospace, and engineering will continue to create opportunities for the state of North Dakota and beyond. Bolstered by an international reputation as a premier research institution, our work has the ability to raise funding, attract star researchers, propel the student experience, and make UND a distinguished place of excellence. With our dedicated research staff, our high-potential research-based programs, and investment in faculty, facilities, and technology, we will reach our goals of becoming an R1 institution, the highest possible distinction for a research university.
Thank you, Grant. Moving on to our next goal, to foster a welcoming, safe, and inclusive campus. And the way we're measuring ourselves is those improvement in credit hours and those improvement in graduation rates. We want our diverse elements of our student body to fully participate in those, and we'll be tracking that as well. Heading this will be Kara Holgren, our Interim Vice President of Student Affairs and Diversity. We're going to be doing the same sort of predictive analytics for targeted interventions with them. My view is that the number one goal of all of our units that serve diverse parts of our population need to be focused on getting them to the graduation line and making sure that we have an environment that we're attracting more students. We started with Lori's leadership, a cabinet of student leaders. This is about 1/4 of them, of all the groups that represent diverse elements of our campus to come together and advise the Student Senate. That will continue. But the other thing is we do a lot of really marquee cultural programs. I happened to stumble across the Africa Night one evening because I'm not sure it was as well marketed as it could have been, but it was a phenomenal program. We got a phenomenal Indian Night that maybe some folks haven't heard of. When I went to the powwow, I was highly disappointed how few students were in these cultural experiences that are really, truly amazing for those that haven't experienced them. So part of what I'd like the challengers to do is to have a cultural passport, that if you as a student, get your passport punched at 5 of these events throughout the year, that somehow there's some kind of benefit that you receive for doing that. Because this is a great thing that we have to offer them, that we need to send them out there. They also need to see themselves reflected in the faculty and the leadership. And so we need to make sure that with the city, with the Air Force, we're doing a better job of making it a welcoming environment for professionals that come from a diverse background. And the other thing that I'm going to try to get done is exchange with a historical black college to begin maybe more than one historical black college or tribal colleges. Our first party that we're looking at is North Carolina A&T, which is amongst the largest and most successful of the historical black colleges. Strong engineering programs, matches up with us in many positive ways. As you can see, the head of Facebook was just there a few months ago. That gives you an idea of the caliber of the university we're dealing with here. Tom and I had a chance to talk with their provost. They're excited about having an exchange with us of faculty and students. You know, they are as diverse as the University of North Dakota, in reverse. So it's going to be a great experience for us and for them. Because if you're, for example, in social work or teaching, and you've had a semester at North Carolina A&T, your resume is going to look a whole lot stronger as you go out into the marketplace, and the flip for them. And our professors that have had a semester in there are going to come back with a much richer perspective, and I think be able to have that much better classroom experience. The reason that I know North Carolina A&T, of course, is the best university in this category is because that's where Angelique did her undergraduate from. So if a tree is known by its fruits, we know that this must be a phenomenal university. Eye of the Hawk has been in part to address making sure that we have a focus on getting our students to think in a more diverse way. And let's hear from Kara.
At the University of North Dakota, we are committed to fostering a welcoming, safe, and inclusive campus for everyone. Students, faculty, and staff bring a variety of cultures, heritages, perspectives, and ideas to our campus community and create a great atmosphere for learning and engagement. At UND, we strive to develop best practices that support diversity and inclusion. We will continually assess the campus climate and ensure that we offer opportunities for intentional cross-cultural interaction and engagement among all of our campus citizens.
Thank you, Kara. On to military. We think there's an opportunity to meet the demands of our military veterans and their families, and so we're going to start measuring credit hours that they take. Tom DiLorenzo is going to be leading this up initially, although we're going to be looking for somebody to captain this long term. If you look at it, this is not a completely open space. UCMC, University of Maryland University College, has 80,000 students, many of them from the military. They have a presence on many military bases around the country and in 20 foreign bases. It's probably their number one thing they focus on is our military. But I still believe there's opportunity for us. We have a great relationship not only with our ROTC units, but our local base. And interestingly, with the aerospace, Odegaard School and I were meeting with the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force, and they started talking about the aviation technology management degree we have. Not everybody has an aviation technology management. When you think of a lot of people that work in the Air Force, they're fixing airplanes. They get an associate degree from the Air Force. Could we bring them up to a bachelor's degree? That could be one example of something that could work for us. Masters in unmanned system integration. I was out talking to Grand Sky about the idea of possibly making available to our students a slice of one of their unmanneds going up in the air so that a student from wherever they were online could decide, plan a flight. If I want to have this sensor on the unmanned vehicle, I want to fly over this space, I want to collect this data, I want to transmit it in this way, I want to secure it in that way. Those are the types of experiences that we could have some truly phenomenal degrees focused on the military. Let's hear from our Air Force Base.
Grand Forks Air Force Base is proud to be part of the Grand Forks community. Our airmen, Air Force civilians, and their families deserve the opportunity to access to high-quality college programs that will propel them through their Air Force careers and all their future endeavors. Our partnership with UND, while they take the steps in becoming an Air University Associates to Bachelor's program, will reduce the barriers and provide a flexible path to education for our airmen both online and on campus. We are excited to be partnered with UND and part of the One Grand Forks community.
And I think that there's opportunities not just with our North Dakota bases, but I think that's where it starts, but we can grow from there. Attract support from a highly engaged alumni. Our alumni love UND. We want to keep it that way. We want our future alumni to do the same. And so we're looking to increase the participation rate of alumni to give from 8% to 10%, as well as we're going to be setting goals for each of the deans and division heads as to what they are going to be raising in the next year. That begins with the deans and the division heads having goals. Deanna Carlson-Zink will be heading it as the captain. But we're also going to be moving towards 100% of our advisory boards giving every year. The overall foundation has moved to that, to have their people on their board giving every year. But that's also going to mean anybody that gets to have advisor to the University of North Dakota on their resume, we should be looking to them, if we're going to achieve the goals we have, to be contributing to the university on a regular basis. We're going to be launching a 2017 mini campaign between now and the end of the year, following on that same match of $1 for $2 for scholarships and experiential learning pool. What I'd like to do is, for example, set up $300,000 of this that hopefully we can get people to match, but that would be available to a committee of faculty, staff, students, that they could allocate out when you hear ideas of an experiential learning. I was sitting at Wilkerson, and the one guy said he was in the choir and they wanted to travel to first Russia. They decided that might not be the best idea. And then they were considering Ireland or Japan. But, you know, could this pool give a little bit of money to make that happen, or any number of 1,000 different experiential learnings that could be brought before that? I'd love to, in my fundraising efforts with the foundation, add more to that pool so that we can really drive this experiential learning. Let's hear from Deanna.
The University of North Dakota has a rich history steeped in tradition. A large part of our university's ongoing success is through the generosity of our passionate alumni. More than anyone, our alumni understand the importance of their educational experience at UND and the positive impact it's left on their lives. It is our goal to translate that commitment to the next generation of students. We pledge to continue building strong relationships with our alumni through personalized engagement and stewardship plans, meaningful communication, and transparent reporting of the effectiveness and impact of their giving.
So, those are our goals. How do we make it happen? How do we make sure it's not just on a shelf? First of all, if you haven't already gotten your cards, you'll be getting the cards on the way out. Somebody said that I was supposed to say why it was important, why this plan was important. The point is that if it's not in the plan, it's not important. So I'm going to be pulling out my thing and saying, which one of the 7 goals are we talking about here? Otherwise, why are we talking? But we need to align everybody towards this. We need to get everybody to pick up their shovel and start shoveling to get it done. And we need to divert attention away from things that haven't been a priority onto those that are a priority. First thing we're going to do is, for the leadership, we're going to be rechanging the job descriptions and having at least half of the way they're judged be how are we doing on these metrics. Second thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be having the President's Cabinet. First of all, we're going to be adding Vice Provost Hasham El-Rouini and Debbie Storrs to it, as well as Tom Erickson, giving our increased focus on research. And that is going to be the group that the captains are going to report to on a regular basis to make sure that on a time and action basis they're moving forward. I just came out of a meeting as to which project management software do we get and how do we make sure we have project managers on each of these goals to make sure that they're moving forward within the university. We also need to make sure that each college and staff unit is being asked between now and September 1 to talk about how do you align to it. We were having a conversation with Tom Erickson, and he said, you know, we used to have a lot of undergraduate research going on at EERC, and we've sort of fallen away from that because we used to get a little bit of aid. Is that an aid where we could use to amp up one of those experiential learnings? As just one example of how every unit needs to think about how do they align with this plan. When we get back to campus, we recognize that many of our fabulous faculty that we love and hold so dear, we're going to have to miss for 3 months. When they come back, we're going to be bringing this up for a reminder. Here's the plan we're on. Here's the action steps we're taking to get it done. And we're ultimately going to align this plan with the NDUS Envision 2030 plan. You know, Charles Darwin said it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those that are most adaptable to change. We've gone through a lot of change. This results in more change, in the direction of the strategic plan. We also have a governor that, if anything, is pushing us to change even faster and wanting us to be nimble and flexible and agile. And as you look at that, that's going to require even more connectedness. And what we've been talking about is making sure that all the staff units are more tightly connected with each other is something we're going to be focusing on. That does provide better career tracks, better training, better alignment with these strategies, better communications, but also makes us more nimble and quick. We have a couple of key searches of the leadership team that we need to fill, whether it be the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, the Dean in the College of Business and Public Administration, and the Center of Innovation, and those will now be launching here shortly. We've amped up our communications. David Dodds and the communications team from UND today have been trying to get ever more information to you on what thinking we're going through, what changes are happening, the why behind all of that, and we'll continue to do that. We're going to be launching a project to make sure we're getting more information in the hands of all the way down to the department heads, so that as we go through these changes, they have the information they need to make the right decisions. But ultimately, there's going to be change. Now, one person said everybody wants stability. And so what advice can you give those that want more stability? The only thing I can do is share with you the story. I had the opportunity to spend 6 days aboard the USS John C. Stennis going from Pearl Harbor, Honolulu to San Diego. And in the middle of that, we went through a tropical storm. But if you went in the center of the aircraft carrier, working in tandem with everyone else, you hardly even notice it. The aircraft carrier is constantly changing, constantly moving forward, but working together as a team, you don't notice it. If you're flying in formation, like my son does, you're always making sure that you're trying to reduce to the greatest extent possible the turbulence that's causing by somebody being not fully coordinated with everybody else that they're working with. And we need to try to be as much aligned with the plan as possible. It's going to be far more stable, aligned with the plan, than if you go up on the deck and try to brave the storms alone. I'm always been fascinated by the story of John F. Kennedy going to the Kennedy Space Center and asking the janitor pushing the broom what he was doing. And the guy pushing the broom at the Space Center said, "I'm putting a man on the moon by the end of the decade." And it's that sort of alignment all the way throughout the university, that if we achieve that as one UND, we did not call this plan one UND by accident. But as John F. Kennedy said here at the University of North Dakota, there's an old saying that things don't happen, they're made to happen. If we take the words that he gave us way back then, the real President of the United States, if we do that, I'm confident that if we embrace these goals, if we drive towards these metrics, that we can deliver much more opportunity for generations of students and our state going forward. Thank you all very much.